Okay, good evening. On this one, I've actually got a couple of notes because it's two or three vectors and they're all kind of somewhat hitting around the same point, or at least the same point for me. You know how my brain works, it sometimes goes off in five directions at once. But anyway, I listen to the Ann Barnhardt podcast quite regularly. Whenever it comes out, I eventually probably hear most of them. And I like Anne a lot. And the more I listen to her over the last couple of years, the more I've grown to sort of understand her a bit. And I think, I like her more now probably than I did when I first started listening to her. But she is wrong about a couple of pretty important things. And that is, she was actually arguing with, is it Super Nerd? The guy that she talks with when she does the podcast. If you don't know who Ann Barnhardt is, she's a pretty hardcore Catholic. But compared to me, she's a rose-tinted glasses, skipping in the grass, girly girl kind of Catholic. Because she thinks Ratzinger is the real Pope. And she doesn't believe in any kind of sedevacantist. I'm not a sedevacantist, as those of you who pay attention know. I'm a sedeprivationist. But anyway, the point is, even Super Nerd was like, no, I refuse to go to the Novus Orco Mass. They call it Novus Ordo, but we're a little bit ahead of them, so we understand that it's Novus Orco, the new orcs, the orcs of the new church, the satanic old church. They just keep changing the name. Now, if you guys don't know what the hell I'm talking about, then I strongly suggest you go and watch my video number 1 and 2, which explain why the Catholic Church that most people think is the Catholic Church isn't, and the clerics in it are invalid. And it's all to do with Canon 188, Part 4. But I've explained that in other videos, so I'm afraid you're just going to have to get caught up because I'm not going to go over it here again. Now, in podcast 86, and about 3 minutes in, Anne challenged people to give her a logical argument to say that the Novus Ordo Mass is invalid and that that Ratzinger is not Pope and all that stuff. I have given her an argument several times and she's ignored it, which is fine. I also think that she's ignored it not because she's being rude or anything, but because I believe she gets a lot of mail, first of all. And secondly, she explained over a couple of different podcasts that a lot of sedevacantists were really rude to her right from the get-go and sort of very negative and attacking her and calling her a whore and all sorts of things, which is obviously just fucking weird and wrong. But I want to clarify that, the SSPX guys, which are supposedly traditional Catholics, I have no truck with them either. And neither do the priests that I stick with and that baptized me and so on. In fact, they originally were SSPX and they left years ago, a long time ago. Their base is actually in Turin in Italy. That's where it started. Which is odd because I was born there, but anyway, but I knew nothing about them until I was in my 40s. So here's the logical argument. It's very simple. Any cleric that does not reject specifically and outright and forthrightly everything linked to Vatican II is a persistent heretic, and persistent heretics automatically lose their office without any pronunciation required by anybody. The law itself condemns them. And the Benedictine monk that I came across this by myself. I figured this out by myself by reading the canon law. But then I read up and thinking, well, I can't be the only guy that's figured this out. And of course I wasn't. A Benedictine monk whose name I can never remember and pronounce because it's very French. But anyway, really great guy. He explained his thesis on this, and it's like, a couple of 100 pages. I've actually got the original in French now, thanks to my priest. And one of these days, when I have a chance, I'll print it all out and read it. I read French, pretty fluently, so it shouldn't be that difficult. Although there probably will be some theological terms I need to, freshen up on. But anyway, the point is, if you're a persistent heretic, Canon 188 Part 4 essentially states you lose your office. It's vacated. Now, the fact that you might hang on to your material office in no way affects the fact that your spiritual office is vacated. And if your spiritual office is vacated, you have no right and no authority to do any of the sacraments or anything else. You're like an excommunicated priest. So, you are invalid. You're an invalid cleric as far as the Catholic Church is concerned. So, just right there, from a purely legal, procedural point of view, Novus Orco priests cannot perform the Mass validly. End of. Secondly, if you have ever gone to a Novus Ordo Mass, it's disgusting. If you've ever, I realized this when I wasn't even familiar with the Latin Mass. I'd just been to a couple of Latin Masses, and then I went to, first I'd gone to a Novus Orco Mass because I didn't know anything. So I went there and I thought, okay, that's what they do. Then I discovered all the stuff, and then I went to attend the Latin Masses, and I thought, okay, this is definitely different and better, and it's not like I understood what was going on. Then after that, I went to, at Easter, I went to a Novus Orco Mass because there wasn't anything near me that was a Latin Mass, and I wanted to just see, I was still exploring, figuring out things, and I went to this very well attended church in Greenwich, full. I spoke to the priest earlier about, wanting to maybe get baptized, and he was like, oh yeah, you will need a year of catechism and blah, blah, blah. I was like, okay, that's kind of weird, I thought, because as far as I know, baptism, anybody can baptize anybody. An atheist can baptize you as long as his intent is good and he says the correct words. That's it. Because obviously it makes perfect sense. You want as many people to, be saved as possible. So being baptized is not a big deal, really. It is a big deal, of course, but it's not something that you need to prepare a year for. You should prepare, and if you have the time, you should prepare for a year. But, both my wife and I, we had like one day. We had like 9 hours of intensive. The priest just sat down with us and said, right, this is what you need to know. And he went on, and then, like he said, now questions. And that was it, like the whole day. We took a break for lunch, and then we carried on, and it was like, all right. And, obviously that was just sort of like the basics. You then have to learn by yourself and read up and whatever what being a Catholic is about, but that's just part of that. That's on you, Anyway, so the argument is there. But then if you go to this Novus Orco Mass and you see what it's like, it's absolutely, it's an insult. I walked out of there. I walked out, when I just stood up. I was with my wife. We weren't married at the time, but I just stood up and I said, no, I'm not having this. I am not sitting here watching this filth, this mockery of what the Mass is supposed to be. And now Ann's point is that she feels that if you don't attend the Novus Orco Mass, you are abandoning our Lord, because in essence, when the Eucharist is given, the presence of God, of Jesus Christ, is there. And according to Catholicism and Orthodoxy, there is transubstantiation going on, so the material matter of the body of Christ is physically there. Now, fine, but I don't agree with what Anne says, which is, if you don't stay there and put yourself through this mockery of the Mass, then you're abandoning our Lord to these semi-apostates and, half quasi-priests and whatever. No. First of all, they're not priests, so the Mass is not valid. I don't believe that the Mass is valid at all when they're doing it. It's not valid. There's no spiritual component to it. It's a mockery. But secondly, let's say I'm wrong. Let's say for whatever reason, there is no reason. There is literally no reason, okay? And I've been telling this, there hasn't been a single priest, lay person, no one that has given a logical argument to what I've said about Canon 188.4. Not one. all right? Not one. What I've got is emotional freaking out, people that can't handle the truth, swearing at me because, oh, they're saying I can't judge the Pope. No logic, no argument, no legal argument, no logical argument, no reasoned argument, just emotions, crazy emotions, okay? So, no, there is no reason. But let's say I'm wrong. Do you really think that God needs me to be at a fake mass to save him? That's not how it works, Anne. God doesn't need me to save him. He saves us. And we are grateful. That's it. That is it. Our relationship to God is we are grateful that he loves us. And we love him. But we're not abandoning him to a fake mass. It's not like, he's not getting nailed to the cross by these people again and again and again. That's not what's happening. He's been through that, he's done that, and now it's up to us to accept him and be saved. So, and that's important. So I agree with Super Nerd, who says he will never attend the Novus Orco Mass. I won't either. It's a mockery, it's filth. Now, there are a lot of lost people, very confused people who think they're Catholic and who are going along to these things and they don't know what to do. Oh, and just, sorry, one little aside. Anyone trying to accuse me of Donatism, which is a heresy, is also a moron, because Donatism is the heretic belief that the priest has to be perfect for the Mass to be valid. That's not the case. First of all, there's no perfect priests. They're all flawed, every one of them. But, I would probably draw the line. I wouldn't take the Mass from a known pedophile or somebody like that, Also because if my priest is a known pedophile, the kind of Catholics we have in our congregation, I think there's a good chance that priest might not make it to, if he is a pedophile, he might not make it alive to jail, because we're actually Catholic. And if anyone touches our kids, well, that's on them. So there is that. But no, it's not a matter of whether the priest is to be clean or not. He has to be a priest. First of all, he has to be a priest. And if he's vacated his office due to persistent heresy, he's not a priest. It's like some, some guy from the Amazon jungle coming out and saying, I'm a priest and I can do the Mass. It means nothing. He's not a priest, he can't do the Mass, and it's not valid if he tried. This is the same. Now, you can tell me that some of these priests don't know that they're not validly ordained, and I believe that that's probably true, but that's not my problem. If you're a priest and you don't know whether you're validly ordained or not because you can't be bothered to have studied the history of the church, that's not my problem. I was a lost, heathen, living outside the church for all my life, and I figured it out. It's true, I'm smarter than most, but it's not that hard. You just got to pick up the books and read them. And if you care, if you actually consider yourself a Christian, a Catholic, why would you not? Why would you not read this stuff? It's the, God, family, nation, right? God, family, king, whatever you want to call it. God first. But you can't be bothered to read the history of it, really? And you call yourself a Christian? It's absurd. It's absurd. Now, this runs into a couple of other points. One of them is, relates to a blog post that Vox put up recently about, stop arguing amongst ourselves as Christians, and, as long as you're on the side of Jesus, we should all band together and fight the enemy. And a similar statement that Owen said as well. Owen Benjamin. Now, I understand where they're coming from, and I don't disagree with what they're saying. It will appear like I do, so brace yourselves. I don't disagree with what they're saying because I understand who Vox is. We're friends. I've been at his house several times, and I understand, as we know each other more and more of the years, I understand his way of seeing things better and better, and he is right. But there are some very important qualifiers which I think Vox perhaps forgets to mention, because sometimes it's not in his nature, and sometimes with people like with our kind of, when you got 150 IQ or thereabouts, sometimes you don't know what it is that you should say for other people to understand you. We're not doing it on purpose. It's just like, oh yeah, it's like, you've got the number 1, you've got the number 2, you've got the number 3, and it's a clear sequence all the way to number 99. I don't need to count through all the other stuff. It's obvious. But to the average person, it's like, oh, wait a minute, dude, you've skipped so many steps. So maybe it's a bit of that. But let me put it this way. There's a lot of people that say they're Christians. There's a lot of people that say they're on the side of Jesus. Are they Christians? Are they on the side of Jesus? What about all the so-called Catholics that believe they're fake priests who tell them that, we should allow all the refugees in from all over the world to come into the ex-Christendom nations? It's absurd. It's absurd. The population of Europe and the population of the United States is a fraction of the world's population. Whether you like it or not, most of the world's population are, barely literate savages. That's a fact. It sounds ugly, but, aside from Japan and, some of the Eastern countries, like literacy is pretty high in China, for example, and there's a lot of them. But, they're not Christians, and they've got a different way of thinking about things. If you import, 10 million Arabs or 10 million Africans in a European country, well, it's no longer a European country. It becomes partly Africa. Now, and Catholics have always understood that nations are a people. Nations are a people. They are an ethnicity. They are a race. I'm Italian, that's Italian. What does being Italian mean? It means, well, you're Italian, you're born. And as Italians, we don't even call each other Italians. We call each other an Abruzzese, a Sicilian, a Venetian, because the people from that region that speak that language, that speak that dialect, that have those features, those guys are Venetians. You take the average Venetian and you look at the average Sicilian, they don't even really look the same, on average. Of course, there's exceptions, right? There's a guy that's going to look like a Sicilian and who really is a 50 generation Venetian, and you'll get a Sicilian that looks like a Venetian and he's been in Sicily, for 50 generations back. There are always exceptions. But as a bell curve, Venetians don't look anything like Sicilians. They're taller, they have more blonde, blue-eyed people in them, or green-eyed people in them, and they tend to be a bit bigger. They've got characteristics of their culture that are completely different, So nation is a group of people that are related to each other by genetics, by culture, by appearance, all of these things make nations. So it's absolutely ridiculous, and the Catholics have always recognized this. It's absolutely ridiculous to say that, oh, we're all the same and everybody's equal. Catholics have never believed in equality at all. A man is not a woman, a man is a man, a woman is a woman, a black person is a black person, a yellow person is a yellow person, a red person is a red person, a white person is a white person. And then you go and look a little bit deeper, because guess what? A Tsonga is not a Motswana. A Zulu is not a Nigerian. And even when you say Nigerian, you think it's not. No, there's Igbo, there's Hausa. You see? To a white guy, you just say, oh, it was a black person. But he's not just a black person. He's a black guy from Nigeria, and he's a Igbo or a Hausa. Or he's from Southern Africa, and he's a Xhosa, or he's a Tsonga, or he's a Zulu. Just like I'm not a German, I'm not a Spaniard, I'm not a Portuguese. And good fences make good neighbors, like the English say. So let the Venetians be the Venetians, let the Zulus be the Zulus, let the Zulus have their Zulu land, and let the Venetians have La Serenissima, and everybody's happy. And if I go and visit the Zulus, I'll be very quiet, I'll look around, and I'll try and do as the Zulus do, and respect their culture, And when they come in my place, they better respect mine. And if I don't respect theirs, or they don't respect mine, don't visit, don't go there. Because if you do go there and then you're disrespectful, you deserve everything that's coming to you. Everything. So, let's be clear about that. Now, the thing is, when you say, oh, I'm a Christian, why? I disagree with the generic concept of, oh, as long as you're for Jesus, you're with us. I disagree with that entirely. Because the vast majority of people that call themselves Christians are actually Churchians, and I cannot stand Churchians. Churchians are evil. Churchians is worse than an enemy. Okay? The pagans, the Islamists, the people that hate Christ and want to see us dead, and say so up front, they're easy to fight. They're easy to. But a Churchian is a guy in your trench who's poisoning your food and demoralizing your troops. That's what a Churchian is. I want nothing to do with Churchians. Now, having said that, that's why I go pretty hard at the Protestants, because also this mindset of, oh, well, we're all on Jesus' side. It's a very Protestant thing. It's absolutely a Protestant thing. And let's get it right, guys. We've got 3 denominations. We've got Catholics, Orthodox, and in the Orthodox, I include the Copts, okay, because they're basically kind of the same. You've got Catholics, Orthodox, and Protestants. And Protestants, if you include the fake Catholics and all the Churchians, outnumber us. But let's get it clear. Catholics were the largest denomination for the longest time, and there is a lot of deceived Catholics that are starting to understand what's happened now. And they're going to come back. There's a lot of us. Same with the Orthodox. The Orthodox never deviated much, but they got corrupted. They got corrupted by the same politics, different politics to what the Catholics got corrupted by. The Orthodox got corrupted more like by power politics, raw power politics, national sort of politics. The Catholics got infiltrated and pretty much destroyed by essentially what are Freemasons. With gay agenda and so on and so forth. But they're essentially Satanists, Freemasons, Illuminati, these guys. They existed. I'm busy doing a documentary about that. There'll be a lot of information in that. They're real. The Illuminati are a real thing, but the Illuminati are just another name for Freemasons. The Americans don't understand this because the Americans are behind everything. They're a new nation. Their Freemasonry was of a different sort when it landed there, and it's been developing, it developed very rapidly, as you can tell from the kind of filth that comes out of Hollywood. And, America essentially tries to run the zeitgeist of the planet with propaganda. And it's not good propaganda. The average Italian, the average Spanish, the average Greek, they kind of we all look at the films and we all look at the movies, but we're also sitting there thinking, fuck these Yankees, they don't know shit. We'll consume their crap because it's very well marketed and they're using all the propaganda stuff, but you can just reject it. And when I say Americans, we mean Hollywood. And Hollywood is not really run by Americans, is it? So what's an American? Again, you have to go back to the concept of nations. Because when you say American, and I talk to my American friends, the guys from the north are like, oh, no, fuck, I've got nothing to do with the Southerners. The Southerners are like, Yankees are not Americans. America's the South, So you take a guy from, and again, I saw that myself, right? If you go from Minnesota and then you go to Arizona, again, bunch of different people, different attitude, different ways of talking, different ways of behaving. Because people are tribal, human beings are tribal. That's what it is. So, no, I don't have any truck with most Protestants. But having said that, and I don't, I'm like proper Catholic, real Catholic, or get the fuck out. That's pretty much my attitude. But if you saw my video with my friend Dave, who's Orthodox, I'll stand all day next to Dave in a trench firing at the heathens or the heretics, whatever. And it doesn't bother me a blind bit that he's Orthodox, and it doesn't bother him a blind bit that I'm Catholic, okay? And I've got friends like Vox, who's non-denominational. That guy is he really is for Jesus. He is a Christian, and that's the guy that I want on my side. And when we're busy reloading at night or whatever during the day, when the night fight is died down and we're just waiting for the next wave, we can maybe argue theology. We can talk about it dispassionately and discuss it and try and see, who's, because we're both trying to, as the Japanese say, push each other up a mountain. I push his beliefs, he pushes mine, and together we both learn something new. If you can argue, it's a lost art. I can do it, Vox can do it, a few other people can do it, but most people cannot argue what the real classical meaning of the word is. Now, I also have a Baptist friend, and I mean, come on, I consider the Baptists, I made a list once, I should read it out, except it's on my phone. I should read a list out. I made a list of all the different types of denomination and what they really are, And basically, Protestants I call the autistic spectrum of Christianity because they're very binary thinking type people. And Baptists, sub-denomination of Protestants, I said, the illiterate, shoeless peasants of Christianity. But one of my friends is a Baptist, and we tease each other to shit. He calls me a papist scum, and I say that he's an illiterate moron. That he can't read and he can't even wear shoes. Never mind read. Reading is like science fiction for him. He can't understand the Bible. It doesn't have pictures. And he tells me that he knows better than to accuse me of being related to the, pedophilic scum of the Vatican, because he knows that's not the Catholic that I am. But, he'll have his God, my belief system or whatever. And it's fine, we're just teasing, we're making fun. And again, I'd stand next to Jay in the trench all day long, because Jay's a Christian and he won't give up. And I know, he's kind of too stupid to learn proper Christianity, right? So it's okay for him to be a Baptist. That's where he's at. That's his level. Hi, Jay. So, it's all right. But the Churchian that tells me, oh no, you have to drink grape juice or some other nonsense doesn't, he's just like what another friend of ours, Nate, calls it, the Jesus is my boyfriend, as Dave put it. Those guys, I want nothing to do with them. They're Churchians. Go away. Go away. And, I have a couple of like little tests that I will throw at a so-called Christian just to see what they're like. One guy, probably the only guy that I met who I consider a Christian, was a Jehovah's Witness. Now, I have friends who escaped from the cult of Jehovah's Witnesses, and they're probably their hair standing on the back of their head right now if they hear me saying that I met a Jehovah's Witness that I consider a Christian. But you see, I judge him on his actions, I judge him on how he behaved, I judge him on his family, I judge on how he treated me, on how he treated my friends at the time, and so on. He was a good guy. He is a good guy. So that guy, yeah, I'll be on his side. But most people who say they're Christians are not. Now, I agree that, the arguing about doctrine and blah, blah, blah is kind of pointless. It is and it isn't. It is, if you're in the trenches, my solution is very simple. I'm not a strategist like Vox. I don't care to have a huge army of thousands of people. No. I'm a tactician. I want my little special op teams, and that special op teams better be people that I can rely on, that if, when there needs to be jump, you don't even have to say the word and nobody asks how high, because you're all going in the same direction and you know exactly where you're going. If you get a little team like that, you can create miracles. Now, those are the people that I want around me. Those are the people that I want on my side. I don't care for the moderates. I don't care. I don't care if that makes me an extremist or what. I don't care. I don't want you around me, right? If you are one of these people that's like, well, we might get overrun, but we have to try and be gentle. No. Keep shooting, bitch, and reload. If you're not shooting, you should be reloading. That's kind of how I see it. And that's fine. If you're one of those Churchian types, go somewhere else. Go somewhere. Don't hang out with me. It's not going to be good for you. It's not going to be good for me. So, stay on your side of the fence. Don't be in my trench. Don't be in my trench. If the shit hits the fan and you're a moderate, do not be in my trench, because I'll tell you now, you'll become the protector of the sandbags, because those guys I'll get rid of first. I'll get rid of moderates in my trench before I get rid of the enemy, because I know if one of them stays in here, he's going to poison the whole trench. Not having that. So now, if you've had a couple of life experiences, because the other thing is, you know, people say, I'm a Christian, and they play a good game, they talk a good game, they act a good game, then bang, comes the hard stuff. And all of a sudden, they wobble. Now, it's true, we all wobble, we're all weak, we all break. That's fine. It's not about whether you get hit. Everybody gets hit. You know, if you've done martial arts as long as I have, everybody gets hit, everybody bleeds, everybody gets scared. But if you've been there long enough, then you get to a point where, yeah, you bleed, yeah, you fail, yeah, you get broken, yeah, you get scared, but it doesn't mean you stop. Those guys, I don't care what denomination they are, those guys are on my side. Because keep in mind that although my filtering mechanism is very hard, you know, it's harsher than Vox's by quite a bit, and it's harsher than Owen's by quite a bit. My filtering mechanism for who I, you know, consider my good friend is high. It's you know, the path to becoming my really good friend is long and hard. You know, it's not fun. But once you're there for life. You know, I've got friends that I had in school and I'm still friends with, and I will always be friends with, even though later in life we diverged paths, because I know the heart of that guy. You know, we've been through crap where like we both thought we're gonna die, and he stood next to me. That's my friend. That doesn't change, you know. So those are the kind of people that I want, and that's the kind of Christian that I want. If you're that type, then you can stay in my trench, and it doesn't matter whether you're a Baptist. I'll make fun of you for being illiterate and shoeless, but you're fine. You're my buddy, you know, and I don't care, you know. But you need to discriminate, you know, and I don't mean the word in the pejorative. You need to discriminate. You need to discern. You need to separate chaff from wheat, right? So no, I don't agree that, oh, well, as long as you're on Jesus' side. What does it mean? Where's your line? You know. Also, for me, again, Catholic, Orthodox, you have a proper Mass, you believe in the Eucharist, and they were there from the beginning. So I don't care about your, you know, crappy little denomination. There's another friend of ours. I'm not sure if he would like me to mention his name, so I'm not going to say it. But, you know, he was taken ill a while back, and he was in a really serious condition, and he was in hospital and sort of in and out of it, and you know, apparently one of the doctors told him, oh, do you know where you are? And he said, no, shit, I don't even know what day it is, I don't know why I'm here, you know. And the doctor told him something like, oh, you're at the Methodist hospital or Baptist, whatever, you know, one of these names that's related to one of the sects of Protestantism. And then later he came back and he said, oh, do you know where you are? And you know, my friend being in and out, he said, yeah, I'm at the, he said Baptist instead of Methodist or whatever, you know. And because of that, the doctor thought, oh, he's really out of it, and no, we got to keep him sedated and all sorts of shit. And he was like, dude, I'm like messed up, and I couldn't care less about what denomination of Protestant bullshit your hospital is called. I don't know why I'm here. I'm fucking strapped to a bed because you're saying that I'm going to hurt myself, but I'm not crazy. You know, I'm sick, and is this a hospital? Because it just looked like a white room, dude. I don't even know. You know, who the hell are you? Sort of thing. And so, you know, you could see how that would go wrong. And this guy was raised Protestant, right? And he's on the, either, if he hasn't done it yet, he's in the process of converting to Orthodoxy as a result of my online flaming rants with Protestants. And he, you know, he credits my input on that. and he's not the only one. There's a few other people that have converted and they've converted to. So this guy converted to Orthodoxy. I'm Catholic. He said, "No, I have you to thank for going to Orthodoxy." Now, if I was, sort of completely closed-minded, I'd be like, "Oh well, you should become a Catholic," No, because at the end of the day, I know we're all in error. I'm in error. I know I'm in error. Everybody's in error, right? It's just a matter of degree of error. Now, my problem is that if you're a Protestant, you're automatically in error. If your target is size 100, right? Let's say if you score 0, you're an exact center of the target, and that's the truth, right? None of us score 0. None of us. But if you're a Protestant, automatically, just because of the fact that you're a Protestant, you're basically shooting at that circle. If you want to give some number to it, the way I see it, you're shooting 75% and above. That's how far out you are. 0 is the truth, 100 is the edge of the last bit of truth before you fall off into the lie. If you're a Protestant, you can't score anything less than 75. Why? Well, because your crap all got invented 500 years, ago. 1,500 years in. So there's 3 sets of 500 of truth, and then your crap comes along for the last 500 by a fat German who just wanted to bang nuns and a king who wanted to divorce and kill his wives when he got bored of them. Those guys created Protestantism. You can slice it whichever way you want, but that's what happened. And the fat German also ripped up some books out of the Bible and then said, "You should never change the Bible." Really interesting. How does that work in his head? German, There you go. So that's kind of it, I think. So I wanted to summarize, wanted to clarify that the Novus Orco Mass is not valid. So Anne, if you ever want to take the time, I'm totally on board with Super Nerd, and he's right. And he can feel it in his heart, he knows it. The Novus Orco Mass is fake, by fake priests, fake Catholics. And I've seen also a shift in Anne, right? I've seen a shift in her way of talking about the stuff. It's very interesting because, everybody thinks that Anne is a completely hard-hearted, cold bitch that's just a complete zealot. But, she's not. She's a girl. And I've actually realized why she hangs on to the idea that the Novus Ordo Mass is valid and that you should stay there because otherwise you're abandoning our Lord. And it's a very female approach. She's a woman and she's trying to be nurturing and supportive even if she can't do anything else, just like Mary at the foot of the cross, right? And that is a commendable attribute for a woman to have. So I can't fault Anne too much. I used to think she was just in error and mistaken. I've probably been a bit too direct and a bit too harsh with how I've said it. I've never, insulted her or anything like that. That's just stupid. I don't know why people would do that, but it's just wrong, rude, and I don't know, just crazy. But I was pretty much like, "Hey, Anne, you're wrong. What the hell you're doing?" And that's uncalled for. She is a woman. She's a lady, and I understand that it's 2 parts. One is she can't face the idea of there not having been a pope for 70 years. It's just kind of a bit too much, for 60 years, whatever it is. It's a bit too much for her, and she would feel really lost. And that's also the reason why she doesn't want to abandon. She thinks she needs to be there to not abandon our Lord in the Novus Orco Mass. So it's a very female thing, and I can't fault her for being a woman. That's it's a nurturing, feminine attribute, and I get it. But I'm a man, so I'm gonna call bullshit on bullshit. And Anne is acting out of the goodness of her heart, so she's not doing anything wrong. She's in error, but she's not You know, she's not evil. She's not trying to mislead anybody. She just has a very big heart, and she would like the world to be a little nicer than what it is. I'm a man, and I don't. I see things as they are, and you know, similarly, don't get disheartened. Remember, we're not given to a spirit of fear. So if you're a Christian man, be a man. And we're gonna, just before Christmas, we're inviting one of our priests up here. We're gonna keep him up here for a couple of days just before Christmas. And we're gonna have a get together where people can ask questions. And we're gonna try and invite also lapsed Catholics or Catholics that are in the Novus Orco and don't know any better. And, you know, I'm going to do this pretty aggressively. We're going to pamphleteer other churches. We're going to spread information. So, you know, this is not stuff that's going to be on YouTube videos and stuff, because we're going to do this in person. We're going to go church to church. We're going to try and get back proper Catholics. That's what it takes, you know. You got to go out there and you got to do your thing. And, you know, it's important. And the little book that I wrote, Believe, is already having a bit of an effect, because I keep getting emails and people thanking me and people saying they're going to convert and that where can I find the proper Latin Mass, you know. So a good there's a place called, I think it's SGG. Anyway, if you go to canon188.com in the About page where it talks about the Canon 188, there's a link there to a broader discussion on why Canon 188 proves that you know, the fake priests are fake priests. And that article was written at the bottom of it by a guy from, there's a link there as well. I'm gonna try and put it in the notes of this video, just if I can. But yeah, so I would say, you know, have discernment, discriminate, do discriminate. It's pointless to have endless arguments about theology, especially with Protestants, because there's 40,000 of them. So, you know, just ignore them. You know, don't associate with like apostates and fake Christians and Churchians. You'll know a Christian when he's a Christian. You know, you'll know a man when he's a man. It's not that difficult, you know. So, but as far as I'm concerned, you know, I have the official line. Get Catholic or go home. That's pretty much how I see it. But, you know, I have friends in many dark places, including a few Orthodox, including a few non-denominational semi-Protestants, including a few illiterate Baptists, including even one hardcore Calvinist, which has sworn not to argue theology with me for at least 10 years. And sometimes he can't help himself. And he gets really upset when I bring up certain points, but I like him a lot, and I think in time he will eventually see the truth. He will find the truth. Funnily enough, both Dave and I think the same about this guy, because he is not dishonest. He is a seeker of the truth. I think he's also hurt and, you know, maybe alone, and he had a certain upbringing, and who knows. So it might take him a while yet, but he'll come to the truth, you know. So, well, that's it. So there you go. All the gammas can now go on and say how the Kurgan disagrees vehemently with Vox and Owen. You know, go ahead. Stir it. I don't care. You know, Vox knows who I am and Owen doesn't, but doesn't matter. It's, you know, truth is truth. So that's basically it. Have a good night. God bless you all. Even the gammas.